Welcome to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. It's Monday, July 7th. Today we are reviewing the first 6-episode season of Ironheart. To the uninitiated, Ironheart is not to be confused with The Ironheart, which was a Filipino action drama that came out in 2022. This Ironheart is also an action drama, but it's a superhero action drama. It's on Disney+. It's the 14th MCU series. It's about a girl named Riri Williams, and Riri is actually pretty new to the comic book world. She came around in 2016, introduced in The Invincible Iron Man. She's represented as a teenage super genius growing up in the Chi, South Chicago, and her best friend Natalie and stepfather Gary were killed in a drive-by shooting. She ends up designing a suit similar to Iron Man's. Then she meets Tony Stark himself. He initiates her into the hero world, and she becomes a hero herself.
It just sounds like they took Spider-Man
Yeah.
kind of from the movies and they changed it with Riri Williams from
I
the
think
comic
Tony
book.
mentors a lot of people. Like, I think he is sort of the Batman of this of Marvel. So he kind of is. He's got his hands in everything.
But when you talk about like changing the suit, that's exactly what happened in Civil War, which came out around 2016. I'm surprised Riri Williams is that recent of a character, though.
Yeah, no. In fact, I have a little game for you in a second. But first, I want to say they've aged Riri up. She was like 15 in the comics. Now she's 19 in the show. She was introduced post Endgame, so there is no Tony Stark
Right,
available. She was introduced in Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. What'd you think of her character in that?
She was actually my least favorite part of the movie. The
Okay,
first
so-
Black Panther, I like. I especially like the villain Killmonger, but Black Panther Wakanda Forever I thought was one of the worst Marvel movies. And I don't remember a lot of the movie, but I remember it was almost 3 hours. And I remember like Ironheart, I thought that it was like very hokey. She's flying around in that Iron Man suit, but like they have this pop song going on in the background.
Do you remember what phase it was, like when this came about? Because
I think-
obviously they had to redesign the entire script.
Right. I think it might have been phase 5, possibly. I think it was.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so going in and finding out that Ironheart had her own series, was that not what you wanted to hear? or what?
If they wanted to give Ironheart a 6-episode series, which they did, and try to give her more backstory and make her more likable, I was for it. It's just the problem with Marvel TV shows. The reason I was skeptical was because lesser known or secondary characters a lot of the time, Echo, She-Hulk, Secret Invasion, all come to mind. Even a show like Moonlight was fine, but not particularly noteworthy.
Right, it wasn't like the first ones, WandaVision and Loki, and you got like some big-time characters
And
who've been there, the OGs.
Sometimes they can end up on my worst of list, but I was also cautiously optimistic because Ryan Coogler is an executive producer on this. He's a very talented director. I like a lot of things he's done.
What about
Creed-
Black Panther 2? No, I'm just kidding.
But I'm
No,
talking
he's
more
just-
like Creed, Fruitvale Station, even Sinners, which I saw in theaters earlier this
anything
year.
with Michael B. Jordan, he's teaming up for.
If he has his name attached in any way, I'm willing to give this show a chance. Also, the casting was a super nice surprise. Seeing Eric Andre in the series as well as Anthony Ramos was cool. Both are people that I am a fan of.
Right, so let's talk about the plot a little bit. So they've aged her up, like I said. She's 19 years old. She's getting kicked out of MIT in the first couple scenes of this.
She wants to extend her grant, but she's being kicked out because she is doing other students' work for money.
Yes, so she's helping them plagiarize her own stuff. And so the dean says that to her, and she tries to defend herself by saying, you just want to stamp on my dreams. You just want to like stop me from doing everything that I possibly want. And the dean kind of shuts her up. She's like, absolutely not. That's not true. Stop giving me this isn't true. Yeah, so she goes home. That's
Right,
the first
she-
episode's title is Take Me Home, and she's vulnerable, and she has to go like live with her mom. Her mom is guilt tripping her, Ronnie, and she's susceptible to being roped into any number of different ventures, but there's this group of thieves out there who get her attention, right?
Yes, well, a position has opened up because Stuart, played by Eric Andre, cannot silence alarms.
You mean Rampage?
Yeah, well, the Stuart, Rampage, they call him a lot of different names in this TV series.
Mhm.
But she's also grieving her best friend, Natalie, dying. We see a lot of that. In fact, the first scene is even a flashback where they're both just kind of talking about each other and like what their dreams are and things like that.
After Black Panther and then the first episode, do you feel like you have a good understanding of who Riri is as a character?
I never felt like in this TV series I got a good understanding of
Well,
her.
I ask you that because the comic book version of Riri is based on either it's Serena Williams because of the tight relationship that she has with her sister, Zendaya, because if you think about it, back in 2016 when Riri's character came about, that was just as Homecoming was in, and she inspired that. Sky Jackson, who's the girl from Bunked, because they sort of look similar.
Yeah.
Or Trick Question, not based on any of these people.
I'm gonna go with Trick Question, not based on any of these people.
No, it's the girl from Bunked.
It's the girl from Bunked?
It's the girl from Bunked. She's younger than actually Dominique Thorne is. Dominique Thorne is 27 years old, the person who plays Riri in the series. She's also from If Beale Street Could Talk and Judas and the Black Messiah. Judas and the Black Messiah was also a Ryan Coogler film.
Right,
so
it came out in like 2020.
She's worked with him before. She's very smart. She went to Cornell, so not MIT, and also not SNU. She did not graduate top of her class with Sang Woo from SNU. But Dominique Thorne how do you think she does acting-wise? Do you think she eats the material?
It's definitely the material. In fact, I feel like the best character was just Anthony Ramos as Parker Robbins as the villain.
Yeah, let's run down the cast real quick. So Natalie, her best friend.
Right, Natalie, her best friend, turns into the AI. That's what the first episode ends with.
She's from This Is Us. She was in that season 2 through 6. She played Deja, who I think is one of the kids. Lyric Ross is her name. And then Anthony Ramos, like you said, Parker the Hood. He's from...
Oh, I mean, the Hamilton, but also
In the Heights.
In the Heights, that's the one that I was trying to think of.
And then also Twister lately.
Right.
I'll give you extra credit if you can remember one of his smaller roles. He was either in Star Trek Beyond, Star Wars The Last Jedi, or A Star Is Born.
Oh,
Which
wow.
star is it?
Oh, it was A Star Is Born.
Yeah,
right?
You got it.
Yeah.
Nice job.
I think he also showed up in Daveed Diggs' show too, like Blind Spot for like 2 episodes.
He did.
Something like that.
Yeah. Alden Ehrenreich. He plays Joe/Zeke. He is the son, I think, of one of the
Obadiah Smith from the original.
I think it's like Snake or something, right? Like
no, I think it's Obadiah Stane. That's what it is. Yes, from the Iron Man movie, Jeff Bridges' character. I did find it cool that they were kind of bringing in the very beginning of the series, like what started off the whole MCU,
and connecting it to Iron Man because of like her comic book connection to Iron Man. So yeah, he's from Solo. He was Solo. Cocaine Bear, Oppenheimer. Do you know how he got his start?
No, I don't.
Have you heard of nepotism?
Yeah.
If you get the opportunity to work in a bat mitzvah video with Steven Spielberg's daughter, make sure to sign up. That's how he got an agent. Steven Spielberg called up an agency and got him one. And then he went on to Supernatural, where you know what Supernatural is well known for. Well, obviously Jensen Ackles, who made his way onto The Boys. And I can't help but when I see Riri think of the super genius in The Boys who plays the evil character last season.
By the end of this TV series, they rip off Supernatural with a deal that is made.
That's also what I was getting at. I was like, and also the deals with the devil. So before we bring up the big bad, the one that everybody wants to talk about, I have a little clip for you to play from our Loki podcast, which was like, I don't know, 3-4 years ago.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about theories for a second. Did you hear any theories when WandaVision was out, or did you try to stay away from them?
I mean, I tried to stay away as much as I could.
Okay, but you were aware that there was like a huge just crew of internet patrons who were all going nuts about what could possibly be going on, especially when Evan Peters showed up as the other Quicksilver. Yeah. And it was very similar to what I remember from Game of Thrones when people would talk about what would happen to Jon Snow or to where like his lineage and what the ending goal was and stuff.
Most people were able to predict the Game of Thrones ones at least, but yeah.
People did not predict that Bran would be the king of...
No, I'm talking about where Jon Snow came from, but yeah.
Not since Game of Thrones have I really seen theories take off like this. But one of the biggest theories, besides Agatha Harkness, because people were able to sense the clues.
Yeah.
It was like Senior Scratch, which was, I think, her cat. And then she dressed up as a witch. So they were able to predict that she was going to be one of the big bads. But they also thought that Mephisto, who is a devil creature that exists in the Marvel universe, who has kind of similar powers to Loki, but is just plain evil, right?
Yeah.
That he was going to be the main villain, that he was responsible for this TV world that Wanda was and that her kids and everything were related to him, right?
Yeah.
So this was the overwhelming theory, and it was almost a joke by the end of it, right?
Right.
So what happens in this first episode? What do they tease to us? They point
Mephisto, is that his name?
The devil creature on this stained glass window, and it's like you could hear all the groans of everybody who was let down from the WandaVision being like, here we go again. So yeah.
I don't think anyone would have guessed that Sacha Baron Cohen ended up playing Mephisto,
Well, I
though.
think the secret got out, I think, in 2023 or so that this was going. So there were rumors circulating for a long time. But like I was trying to point out, is that the rumor of Mephisto has been there since the very beginning of the TV shows.
Mephisto, to me, was introduced way too late in this TV series because I know I just said that Anthony Ramos as Parker, I think he was the best actor, but in terms of character, like actual character that I wanted to see more of, one that actually moved the plot, which is saying something for this TV series, Mephisto, when they introduced him in the finale, I actually was interested in his scenes.
Yeah. So how'd they introduce him and what does he look like?
So Parker we saw this flashback, I think in like episode 3 or 4. He's with John, who ends up dying in the episode 3, but they flash back to the night where he killed someone and the cops are trying to chase him and he runs down this tunnel. They're about to get to him and then Mephisto kind of comes out of the shadows and he looked again, he took me until I like did a little bit more research to realize it was Sacha Baron Cohen because it's just me. He looks so different.
He looks like Nandor to me.
Right. but he brought him into this tunnel and then it's this restaurant and we see that is where Mephisto has actually given Parker his cape. His cape is something that he wears throughout the first 4 episodes. I thought it was a nice way to show how he ended up gaining it because this cape has superpowers. This cape actually has Mark Miller wanted powers where he's able to bend bullets. We see that in the second episode.
I think it's indispensable. Like you can just do anything with the cape, kind of like the Doctor Strange cape. And then also because it corrupts, right?
right.
I'm thinking maybe if they want to try to pull that Robert Downey Jr. is still Tony Stark, maybe it's the cape. Maybe the cape is making him Doctor Doom. And they take that thing off and he's good.
That's what made it so weird, though, because it's like this cape apparently gives him a ton of powers. He is so not about anyone wearing it. He wants to keep it himself because Parker is all about powers. Yet in episode 3, it was kind of pathetic because Riri, as they're pulling this other heist on this billionaire, is able to like cut off a little part of it and is trying to keep it to do some like research on it without his knowledge. But it was like, if this cape is so powerful, if it's so strong, you wouldn't think that she'd be able...
It wouldn't tear?
Yeah, that wouldn't tear. Or that she'd be able to have, like, a piece of it.
Benefit of the doubt to the show. So the end of the show has Riri, I know we're skipping ahead, but Riri is approached by Sacha Baron Cohen's Mephisto, right?
Yes, right.
So maybe he, because he'd been watching her the whole time, allowed her to break the cape off.
That could
just
be
to
it.
Corrupt her a bit more.
To be fair, it wasn't like she came up with scissors and just clipped it. She had to, like, use some of her technology.
I agree with you, though, that the introduction, because that was one of the few scenes that I saw, the intimidating chat over pizza, getting that one family to be quiet with a snap of his fingers or even less, that stuff was really funny and also pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean, Mephisto, whenever it focused on him in that finale, that was the best part of the TV series as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, every other episode I thought was really bad.
It struggled?
I thought that, like, I never understood the character's motivations. Yes, sure, Parker wants power, but all he ends up doing in the TV series after he decides to fire his crew, which kind of came out of nowhere, a decision that was strangely made, he then decides to go to his father's house, kicks his father out, and now has the house.
Sure. So even with the conversation with Mephisto, he wasn't exactly 100% sure what he wanted. It was kind of Mephisto pushing him to give some form of answer that would require magic. And so I think what happened was when he got the cape or whatever, that it amplified all the greed in him and it made him just I don't think he ever really truly wanted to just destroy his father and then be rich. I think he just didn't know what he wanted, and by the time that he sort of figured it out, he was completely corrupted.
And we see scars on his body. In fact, by the end of the TV series, they start showing
venous,
up
like,
on his face.
Veiny stuff going on.
But like, it's not even about Parker, because at least there he says straight out, "I want power." But all the other side characters in the second episode, we get introduced to Slug. Slug is the hacker extraordinaire. Clown is the pyrotechnic specialist. Roz and Jerry are blood siblings. They're the muscle.
The heist team.
Right, and that's kind of how Parker describes them. John being his cousin, but we never get any backstory on any of them.
This is in like the first few episodes, right?
Yeah, no, this is the second episode of the whole series.
So like in this first batch, it felt like we got this new team, and then why does Riri like ultimately decide to join them is the question. Because you can always have ne'er-do-wells like running around.
I think she does it for money. Like,
Okay.
that's because at first she decided not to do it, and here it's like when they do one mission. This was also something I didn't really understand. They do one mission in episode 2, and suddenly, because it works out successfully, they're rich, and they automatically accept Riri. She's just accepted into the
I
group like
mean,
she's
she's so
family.
smart as it is. I just think she could have made an app. Like the weirdest thing with this universe is that Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we talked about it there. Anthony Mackie's family was facing like they were being kicked out. And so he needed money too. And I was like, but you're friends with Tony Stark. Who is Riri friends with? She's friends with Wakanda. Like she has friends with Siri, the Black Panther. Like Shuri. And so
Well, let's talk a little bit because you're talking about friends. Let's talk a little bit about Nat. Nat was the worst AI. I did not understand why Riri started to trust her multiple times in the second episode. She almost kills Riri. Like when she's flying around, she also starts glitching out when the cops come up to her.
but she's
Like,
not Megan evil, right?
no, she's not evil, but I thought that as a TV series went, Nat was coming across as unlikable because she's not doing anything that Riri told her to. She even says, just stay in this computer because she's an AI. It's being projected from the suit. But then, like, like, within an hour, already lets the mom know that she's alive and she's an AI. That's
So
exactly
Nat
like her.
is emotional.
Oh, yeah,
Usually,
definitely.
usually we see like Jarvis and even to a certain point Vision not as emotional.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's just because it's coming from the fact that it came out of Riri's brain, right? So
that's
she's
true.
struggling with this, and so that's what they're trying to present is that she's not only just an AI, or that AI are becoming more empathetic and more able to mirror.
The problem is that they do try to, like, kinda cash in on the friendship, show that they're friends, but Natalie came across as so sarcastic that to the viewer, I just couldn't get, like, into
When
her
she died, wasn't
character.
she like 17?
Yeah.
Like you can't pick a more sarcastic age. I mean,
I mean,
two
when you're
17-year-old girls.
watching 6 episodes of this, the strangest thing is episode 6 is like 40 minutes, 35 minutes probably without credits,
Mhm.
and some of the episodes, most of the episodes are like maybe 50 minutes, an hour long, and I genuinely feel like the finale is so much less than those other episodes because they barely had any plot to this TV series in the first place. You would think, like, for example, in episode 5, everyone, because they figured out that Riri is the reason that John died in episode 3, he caught her trying to get the cape and analyze it, and then she ended up killing him. That actually
Uh-huh.
did happen. But episode 5, it's like everyone is trying to fight her now. Everyone that, like,
The whole team
accepted
has
her.
turned against her, and they're
Right.
trying to kill her.
Roz and Jerry fight her. I thought that that was lame. It took place in like a White Castle. And then Slug, though. Slug is the character. I didn't understand this plan at all. So the suit is flying around because Natalie is mad at Riri, and then Slug uses this hook, like an Inspector Gadget like hook,
Mhm.
and then puts it in the back of the truck. But yeah, you would think that he would realize that there would be some type of element, some type of option, because what the suit ends up doing is it just cuts the strings that are restraining it. And then he starts to try and run down Riri in the middle of the streets. Riri decides to run in a straight line down the middle of the streets, doesn't even try to get into the buildings that are to the
Well,
side,
yeah,
to the
Riri
sidewalk.
so Riri without her suit is nothing. Like
Right.
an ant could take her down.
Right, but the point was that, like, if she had tried to get to the sidewalk, tried to get inside a building, at least then Slug would have had to get out of the car.
Mhm.
But then the suit obviously breaks out from the truck and then comes around Riri to save her. She ends up punching it and the truck flips over. The part that I could not get over is all these people are trying to kill her. She needs to get, like, information. She literally sees Slug get out of the car and she lets him go. You would think that she would
Well,
use
she's not
him.
trying to kill them
No,
back.
but you would think that she uses him as collateral. I mean, literally, the whole team is after
She's
her.
going to kidnap Slug.
She's going to use some information, be like, what's going on right now? I mean, literally, is like a scene later, she's having to fight Ezekiel
Okay,
because Ezekiel is
so
evil
because
now.
I saw most of this episode, is that not when Slug got hit? Then Riri like stood up, made the like I'm gonna get you
Yeah,
next
I'm
time.
like, yeah.
Yeah, and then she barfed up blood. Like
Yes.
she's hurt. I don't think she's only happy that she's getting out of there alive. I don't think that she's all that interested.
I feel like it's not the fact that she would have killed Slug. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying she would have used him for information. I mean, the whole entire team is coming
But
after
she knows
her at
why
this
that
point.
she's being hunted.
I just feel like you wouldn't have let him go. He did, or they tried to kill you just now.
Okay, but then they get fired anyways.
Yeah, and that was another thing. So even though at the beginning of this episode, all of these characters that we've known a little bit about because we've seen the heist they do, you would think that they would try and get their comeuppance some way. Like the TV series would write it so that they somehow get
They never
some
come
type
back?
of. No, once they get fired from Parker, they're gone. The only person who stays is Ezekiel, who for some reason has lied to Parker about killing Riri when
It's
he
not
easily
for some
could
reason.
have.
He realizes that if he didn't lie, he would be killed.
Here's the thing. Right after Slug left, that's when she gets in the fight with Ezekiel Stan, right? Yeah. And so
Zeke, yeah.
Yeah. And so Zeke then gets the better of her. Like he's literally ripping off her helmet,
He's been augmented as a human, so he has the same powers, I would say, as Jamie Foxx in Spider-Man. Like he can just electrify her, and so he's able to short her out.
Taking out like the spinal cord of the suit.
Right, there's a few suits.
Right. And so Parker, we've seen, because he had to go to jail, has manipulated Zeke in such a way where he sees Riri as the ultimate villain. He's the reason she was put in, she's the reason he was put in jail because she left by some evidence that they ended up connecting to him.
Zeke hasn't been as corrupted, though, as Parker. He hasn't met Mephisto. He doesn't have that cape constantly pumping toxic ideas into his head. So even though he sees Riri as someone he needs to destroy, he's still a little bit more human than his dad is.
I felt like that probably is the case. However, I felt like in episode 2, we see that Zeke, before he gets corrupted, helps her with her suit.
That's when he's Joe, right?
Right. That's when he's Joe. He's going under a different alias. But the thing is that like they were supposed to bond in episode 2 when really all that happens is Riri tells him to stick up for himself a little more and they sing a song together.
Oh, they sing in this show.
Yeah, they do. It was not good. But episode
was
5,
Anthony Ramos singing like
no,
he did in Hamilton?
No, and they should have had him
They
singing.
should have.
Yeah, but Zeke, and when going back to episode 5, I felt like he didn't kill her based off of that. But I was like, that's the stupidest bonding scene you could have.
It's too corny for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so after that, then they make this I could not get over. She ends up making a different Iron Man suit, one that is way more high tech, one that is way more like advanced than any that she's worn in this episode, from a red Corvette.
Transformer style.
I was like, what type of like items are in this car?
We live in a universe where there's a lot of like the Blue Beetle movie. There's Transformers. I feel like for kids, that's for the kids.
That is true. And I get that also technology has advanced rapidly in the world that they live in, also in this world. But it does kind of take away a little bit from like when you look back at Iron Man in 2008. A lot of that movie was about him like kind of building that suit and having to put in different features that ended up working. I'm talking about when he makes the red suit, not the one that he was stuck in like Iraq for. And here it just takes a quick montage and suddenly that suit is done. I thought that it took away a lot of like what made kind of seeing him work on it.
But didn't they also add magic? So this is the whole theme of they couldn't get it working just with technology, but they needed to add magic to it. I don't think Tony ever had that option.
No, that is true. There is a character named Zelma that's introduced in episode 4. I felt like she was only introduced for the end credit scene that happens in episode 6.
And what's that?
So Parker ends up surviving. It was strange. Parker and Riri have a fight, obviously, in the finale, but it only lasted 3 minutes. It was even shorter than some of the fight scenes earlier on in the episode.
And I thought he was irredeemable at that point.
He looked a lot like Matt Smith from Morbius. I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen how like he's the monster, and it was very, very similar. But yeah, Parker ends up at the very end. This is the after credit scene, going to Zelma's place and kind of asking for her help.
And do you think she's going to give it?
Yeah, and I mean it was an interesting final scene, but like overall I just felt like the TV series there was so much that I just didn't understand. The mom, like I said, is the smartest character, yet Riri is always just very like deflective. She's not letting the mom know about anything, but the mom's like, "Hey, it turns out that like police are at our door and I want to know what's going on. Like, you have to, like, communicate with me. I felt like the mom was the protagonist because of these questions that she was
Who
asking.
was it who asked when they saw that Natalie was back? Because not only did Riri see Natalie, but everybody could.
Right.
Who asked for her to bring someone else from the dead back?
So that was the mom.
That was the
And
mom.
that was the only scene where I was like, okay, maybe the mom's a little crazy because she wanted Gary, who was her stepfather, to be brought
Not her
back.
stepfather, it was her husband.
Right, her husband. I was
Mhm.
saying Riri's stepfather. And of
Mhm.
course, Riri wasn't really the reason why Natalie was bought back. Like, she couldn't just make another person.
Right,
So
this
she
isn't
couldn't tell
Black
that's her
Mirror,
mom.
they're not gonna have that
Yeah.
weirdness. But at the same time, Mephisto shows up and offers Riri the deal of a lifetime, which is really, in this universe, pretty normal because we've seen Bucky come back to life, Loki come back to
Right.
life, Phil Coulson come back to life, half the universe come back to life with a snap. So it really doesn't seem like death is that much of a barrier.
And that's kind of a problem because I thought that the least that the show could do, especially in the 6 episodes, is if Riri's going to grieve, kind of like other TV shows have done, kind of follow through with that and realize that everything is okay. But no, everything that we've seen in the last 5 episodes suddenly gets flipped on its head because she decides that we don't know what the deal is, but she
Well,
shakes hands.
Natalie's coming back.
Yeah, well, no, we don't know what her side of the deal
Her
is.
soul, I would
Yeah,
assume.
but Mephisto, yeah, brings Natalie back. So now Natalie, at the very end of the episode, she can touch her and everything.
And also
like, it's real.
Mephisto and it looks like Riri are on the same side. So Riri doesn't necessarily have to be a hero now. Can you imagine if Wanda had met Mephisto, like in that universe, when she was looking for her kids? She would have signed that deal instantaneously.
That would have been
And
that
you
would
would
have
have
been
had
very
two of like
interesting.
the strongest witches, like
Could you have
going after
imagined
each other.
instead of just Doctor Strange versus Wanda in Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, also having Mephisto
You would have
show
had to
up?
have introduced him a little earlier, but
Yeah, like, I'm
absolutely, that
saying
would have
in
been
that
crazy.
world where, like, it was in WandaVision, I think that would have been, like, a crazy movie.
Oh, that would
Yeah.
have been funny, especially seeing, like, Sacha Baron Cohen and, who plays, Doctor Strange again? Benedict Cumberbatch?
Yeah.
Those would be interesting scenes.
There's parts of the show that I thought worked aside from just Anthony Ramos and Mephisto. Like, for example, when we first meet Joe, we see that his neighbor is very mean to him, but the neighbor has a dog named Lucky. Obviously, that's a tie-in to something like
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye. And there's different parts like that, but overall, I was just like, I don't understand these characters enough. Riri, I never got the sense as to why I understand that the TV show was trying to make her the protagonist, but I never really, like, was rooting for
But it's
her.
weird how, like, all these shows are just, like, the same story over and over again. Hawkeye is just this show, but instead of not having a mentor, what's her face? Kate whatever gets a mentor in Hawkeye.
Kate Bishop, yeah.
Yes, Kate Bishop gets it. Her dad is dead, and then even the Russian girl who shows up in that one, the one from Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
Like, what is her guiding force? In this case, for Riri, it's Natalie, but in that one, it's her Black Widow sister.
I actually
right?
read something about Thunderbolts earlier today. Apparently, they had to switch up Sentry's backstory because it was too much like Spider-Man No Way Home, where he wipes people's memories. But yeah, no, I agree with you on that.
So this concludes Phase 5.
This is the thing that concludes Phase 5?
It feels like it was the quickest phase because it started with Secret Invasion. It had Loki season 2 or whatever, I guess, in it.
Mhm.
But like it doesn't feel like we got too much going on.
It's been, yeah, I mean,
Ant-Man and the quantum whatever.
right, no, because it's weird how they're ending the phases now, because if I remember correctly, I think the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special ended Phase 4.
And Fantastic Four is going to be in the next one, and you got a lot to look forward to.
Oh, can I mention one last
Yeah, go
comment I
ahead.
had about the TV show? The references. This is just from episode 2 alone. We're very old. You have like Spy Kids references, Sus, Orange is the New Black, Jay-Z.
Oh, I'm all
Joe.
for that.
Joe
That would be a
says-
pro for me.
Joe says in episode 2, that's so fresh, and he's like 30 years old.
Yeah. That's great. I like that.
Overall, I think that this is the worst Marvel TV show, even despite some good parts. I'm gonna have to give this like a 3.5 out of 10.
3.5 out of 10. It's got mixed reviews. It is rated not as bad as Inhumans as far as Marvel shows, but as far as MCU Marvel shows, Echo, Secret Invasion, and She-Hulk do have a higher Metacritic score than this. This has, I think, a 57. Guardian, New York Times, Collider, Roger Ebert, Rolling Stones, Hollywood Reporter, they all sort of say it's clumsy, it's unremarkable.
It's just if you're gonna introduce characters, you have to give them some objective, even if they're small, and it never felt like the TV series did that. Like I said, the only defined kind of character trait we get is from Parker, who just wants power.
Right. Like if she really wanted to go back to MIT, I'm sure she could have worked something out there. If she really wanted money, I'm sure she could have done it easier than signing up with a group of villains.
And the villains just being so like willing to bring her in after she does one thing right. So they end up pulling off the first successfully, but by the second episode, or by the third episode, she's literally killing one of the members. It's just
The Cider and IndieWire did like it. They called it like a coming of age story. It's just not a teenage, like a later teenage coming of age story. Yeah, other than that, Ryan Coogler's production company, but he wasn't the one who actually created the show. That was Shanaka Hodge. She was the head writer. She was the creator. This came about like 5 years ago. They've been working on it since then. Yeah, the next podcast that we're going to do is Night of the Living Cat. Is that right?
Night of the Living Cat. Yeah, excited
But it's
for
not
that
spelled
one.
night. It's like night.
Yeah, it's like NYAIGGH.
And do you know anything about that yet?
I know a little bit.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.